Hey everybody, my name is Stacy. I was basically born and raised a Jehovah's Witness. My mother supposedly turned atheist when I was 2, claimed that one night when in the bathtub, she decided to challenge God. If you really exist, prove to me that you're there. And who should show up the next day at the door but Jehovah's Witnesses? So my mother joined when I was 2. I was basically born and raised. I left about 27 years ago. And it's great, it's good. But what I found out was that, and what I wanted to address this evening, was the fact that ex-cult members, if you didn't know, are extremely not possible, but probable to join another high demand, high control group. Okay? You're agreeing with me, which is amazing, because I thought most people are going to be like, shit, yeah, right. No, really, it's actually true. But why is it true? Well, number one, it is the human tendency to be highly suggestible and susceptible to manipulation. And we know that's true. If you're comfortable, raise your hand. No one will bring you a microphone, so don't panic. Raise your hand. How many of you walked into Walmart just to buy like AAA batteries and some Windex and walked out with a cart full $200 later? Exactly. How many of you have been on your social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and then you bought a product that not only you didn't know you wanted, but you didn't even know it existed before it showed up in your feed 5 times, right? Okay, so that's manipulation right there. You walk into Walmart, the stuff at eye level is all more expensive than the other stuff. Did you know that? Your social media, you know how social media scrolls up? You know what else does that? Yeah, slot machines at the casinos. Social media marketing psychologists consulted porn sites and casinos for how they could addict you to your screen. Yeah, so that's manipulation, classic, right in front of us every single day. Oh, but it gets worse, right? So then there's hypnosis. My ex used to do a hypnosis show every year for 20 years that I was with him. Now, that wasn't his main profession, but he did hypnosis shows once a year for the high school students at the local high school. High school would offer a lockdown party so the kids wouldn't go out and drink and drive, right? Lockdown party, and the highlight of the evening was my ex coming in, getting up on the auditorium stage to all the high school graduates and saying, who wants to be in a hypnosis show? Now, these 18-year-olds were running up to the stage, knocking each other over, climbing on top of each other to get on the stage. 30 or 40 of them would be up there. My ex would start the induction, and he would tap out those who weren't going to go under deep and fast, because you want to put on a good show. He'd end up with 15 or 20 students and 10 chairs. Well, as the show progressed, he would have these kids convinced that the floor was so hot they couldn't stand on it. And all of a sudden you had 20 kids scrambling on 10 chairs, holding on to each other, trying to get off the floor because they were convinced it was completely hot. He would give them a set of glasses that had no lenses, tell them it was X-ray vision. Next thing you know, all the kids were seeing everybody in the audience naked and the wires in the wall. By the end of the show, he had one of the young gentlemen convinced he was pregnant, in labor, and giving birth. Okay? On mere suggestion. They believed it, and I had a front seat in the audience every show, and I'm telling you, I could see their eyes. They weren't acting, they weren't faking, they believed it was real. But let's go even deeper and a little more nefarious. The hypnosis crowd told us for years and years and years that you could be hypnotized to cluck like a chicken and make an idiot of yourself, but you couldn't be induced to do anything against your moral code. In other words, you couldn't be convinced to stab the guy next to you because that was wrong. But that's completely false. Do you know how we know that? MK Ultra. MK Ultra was a clandestine CIA research program that wanted to see how far you could control someone's mind and behavior through hypnosis, through drugs, through a sensory either overload or deprivation, through trauma, through interrogation. One of the main goals of MK Ultra was to produce a Manchurian candidate. We all know it from the book and the movies, right? They wanted to see if they could get someone to break their own moral code, commit a heinous crime, and then completely forget about it. And recent documentation in the last decade has proven that they did it, and it's true. And that is not conspiracy, that is absolutely completely proven. I could name the books and the authors and all the people who have done the research. So basically though, what does Walmart marketing, social media advertising, hypnosis, and MK Ultra have to do with being an ex-Jehovah's Witness? Well, it has to go to my point at the very beginning. We are suggestible beings. We are susceptible to manipulation. So how do we protect ourselves? Well, I have 4 ways for you. The number 1 way is a simple exercise, but it's a written exercise, okay? When you get involved with a new person or a new group, now hold on, I'm going to back up one moment. I forgot to say that the reason I'm telling you this is because from personal experience, when I was leaving the witnesses, I wasn't likely to get involved with another strict religious Christian group, but I got involved with a narcissistically, antisocially, personality disordered dude who thought bashing my head into things was a good idea. Because I could see that the witnesses were a cult, but the crux of the problem is I couldn't see what manipulation looked like in a different form, right? That's why I'm offering these protective things. So back to that number 1 exercise. If you meet a new person, want to get involved with a new group, get out a pen and paper. Write down a list of all the things that that group or person does that are weird, quirky, strange, odd, make you feel not quite right. Write it down. Don't catalog it in your mind. Write it down. First, if the list becomes really long, you might want to reassess. Take that list to a trusted friend or family member who is stable, mature, and has your best interest at heart. Let them look at it and give you an assessment of whether or not they would stay involved with that person or group. And I say this simply because, guys, sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. If you all came to me and said, hey, I met this new person and I think they're acting kind of manipulative, I would be able to tell you whether or not. But sometimes I can't see it for me because my emotions get involved. That's why I say, make a list. Take it to someone. You're not being judgmental. You're not being negative. Forget that. You're just trying to assess whether or not this is a safe environment for you. The next thing you want to do is begin to train your mind to think not in black and white, but in shades of gray. And by shades of gray, I don't mean the movie Get Your Minds Out of the Gutter, okay? No. What I mean is stop thinking dichotomously, right? What were we taught to do in the organization? We were taught to think in black and white terms, all or nothing, good, bad, right, wrong, right? Us versus them. We're right, they're wrong, we're good, they're bad. So we need to stop thinking in those black and white terms because it's dangerous. What happens is when you get involved with a new person or a group, methodology, ideology, philosophy, religion, your tendency will be, instead of looking to that for an answer, you'll look to that for all the answers, because your mind immediately goes to that all or nothing, black or white thinking, and you don't want to do that. There was a little while there that I was really into reading about business and money, and I just thought Dave Ramsey was the bomb. And his theory is debt is bad. Get out of debt. Don't ever go in debt again. And I thought, well, that's a good idea because, debt sucks. But is that the answer every time for everyone? every single situation? Probably not. So what you need to do is when you've come across a new idea, always consider the opposing points of view. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to assimilate them. You just have to keep an open mind and know that most of life is one huge gray matter, and you can consider all the information. Information is never going to hurt you. Number 3, develop a personal moral philosophy. What does that mean? It means you need to know your values. Warning, guys, if you don't know your values, someone else will impose them on you. Isn't that what the Watchtower organization did? It said, we'll tell you what's moral. We'll tell you what's right. We'll tell you what to wear. We'll tell you what music to listen to, what movies to watch, what meetings to go to, what you'll read, what you won't read, who you love, who you won't love. If you don't have your own values of which you will hold everything and everyone accountable to, someone else will impose them on you. So you need to know your values. For instance, my very first value is freedom. My second value is love and truth. Now they're in that priority because I can love from chains and I can speak truth from a prison cell, but I can't love or speak truth in the ways that I desire and want to if I'm not free. So freedom first. Know your values. Now, this last thing I'm going to say is the most important. And you've listened to a lot of people today, and you're going to be listening a lot more the next 2 days. So the likelihood that you're going to remember much of what I said is slim. But I want you to remember this last thing. You are sovereign, free beings. You fought hard and courageously for this freedom, and I don't want you to ever cede your authority over your life to anyone ever again. What does that look like in practical circumstances? Okay? You're driving down the road. You're going 20 miles over the speed limit. You just passed on the right and you didn't use your blinker. Whoop, whoop. Cop pulls you over, license and registration. In that moment, it is really easy to get, you know how you get that quaky, nasty feeling in your belly? You're like, oh my God, it's a cop and he has all the power. No, he doesn't. That's a dude who has a job. And his job is to make sure the roads are safe. You like driving on safe roads. I like driving on safe roads. So in that moment, consciously, you can choose to say, he has some minor authority in this situation to give me a ticket for driving like an idiot. Okay. Now you go to the judge. Once again, now you're going to go in there and just hope that he changes it from a moving violation to a parking ticket. And you're going to give him the authority to do that, but you're doing it consciously and momentarily. You're not saying this person has the control over your whole life, right? You go out to dinner after that court date and the judge there is eating with his family, eating pork ribs with barbecue sauce all over his face. He's not so impressive, is he? Right? Authority is only to be given consciously, momentarily in situations. No one has authority over your life. As I said before, you fought hard for the freedom you have right now and courageously. Please don't ever give it up to anyone ever again. Cherish that freedom. And that's about all I have other than, yes, I wrote a book. Yes, I wrote a book called Cult Girl, and it is about a young woman as she approaches, her family joins a new religion. And as she approaches 18, she begins to realize it's a cult. She's going to be in danger, and she needs to be very cunning and courageous to leave and to escape. It is loosely based on my experiences, although I was not cunning and courageous. I was just desperate and depressed. But it is loosely based on my experience. The cult in it is also fictitious, although you'll recognize the group. So I don't have physical copies of the book with me, but it is available on my blog, which is whateverlovinghell.com. So please visit it if you want. And in between time, the next day or so, please come up and introduce yourselves. I would love to hear your stories. Thank you.